Hello, everybody. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. We have a wild video to get to, which is my reaction and commentary to the Kaitlyn Bristowe comments heard over the weekend on the You Up podcast, which I'm going to share with you guys right here. So she went on You Up, which is a Betches produced podcast. We have Jordana on the left and Jared Freed on the right. It's a comedy-focused podcast that covers dating, relationships, all those things. But of course, Jared, very funny stand-up comedian, and what Kaitlyn said has drawn a ton of media attention. I would say about 99% of the comments online are bashing her. But let's just watch it, and then I'll give you my thoughts. How does that sound? Now, in advance of comments saying, Dave, you're friends with her, you're being biased. Sure, that's how bias works. When you're friends with somebody, you see their intention versus possibly framing things in a negative way. But I'll defend my case afterwards. So, of course, I'm trying to prevent the comments that will dismiss my opinions. But hey, you're allowed to do whatever you want. I'll promise you this, on videos like this, I'm just not even going to jump into the comment section. That's for y'all. I've kind of given up. All right, let's get into it. Here's what Kaitlyn Bristowe had to say about her friendship with Kate, or her work relationship, whatever it is, with Tayshia Adams, and how that went south after she started dating Tayshia's ex, Zach Clark, who of course won Tayshia's season of The Bachelorette. Have a listen.
Always like the cover up is worse than the crime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like if you're gonna do something a little like that they know that might bother you or a little weird, I think just like a heads up and an acknowledgement that it might be like annoying for you to hear, I think is all you kind of need, and then you can kind of do whatever you want.
And then people can say to me, like, how you've done this, and I'm like, how do you not know I haven't reached out to that person? Like, I just haven't shared it.
Yeah, if you want to date like an ex from years ago or something, or someone went on a date with, like, I feel like if you ask, that solves everything, because no like sane, rational person is going to be like.
And by the way, Jordana, I don't believe she's baiting Kaitlyn to have this conversation, but if she was, this would be expert work here.
Look, they're even if they don't really want you to do it, they're not going to like say, please don't do it, because it's going to make them look.
Well, I have a really great example that I can't believe I'm going to share.
Let's hear it.
There it is, Kaitlyn Bristowe opening the vault. She already regrets it. Don't do it, Kaitlyn.
So
get the clip ready.
Yeah, get it ready.
So even Jared knows this is going to be gold.
I went on a date with somebody from the franchise, and I reached out to the girl that he used to be with,
Tayshia,
because again, I wanted to see.
He didn't. You did.
I did.
Now,
why would he?
Wait.
Well,
reach out to his ex to say, can I go on a date with Kaitlyn?
I don't know. Are you friends with his ex? Not
we
really.
No, not in. We hadn't talked in months, and like, no, we're not.
So they're talking about Tayshia. Now, people will say, what are you talking about? They were friends. Like my good friends, She's All Batch podcast, which I do believe I would say they're friends. If they disagree, I'm unfriending you. And they posted, we weren't friends, we were coworkers. And then they posted this collage of them talking. But like every time you see them together, they're doing coworker stuff. They're at a Bachelor events. If you're a Bachelor alumni, you are a coworker. And not to mention, I mean, they co-hosted the show together. So you're working 18-hour days. You're in your trailer half the time. You're on call. This is what it was. So a lot of people said, well, I mean, you gotta define, were they friends or coworkers? Kaitlyn says they hadn't even talked for months. And does that give you the right to swoop into a coworker's ex's DMs? Well, also she'll say that Zach Clark swooped into hers. If it sounds as though I'm being very particular here, it's because facts matter to me, and I want to make sure we're all on the same page of what is about to go down.
You were like,
we probably look like friends on the outside,
sure,
but we're not.
So you're
can you re-explain this?
Okay, and at this point, this would be like how Rachel Leviss from Vanderpump Rules claims she was best, or she wasn't even friends with Ariana, and Ariana's like, you were my best friend. So if Tayshia disagrees with Kaitlyn and says, oh no, what are you talking about? We were great friends. We went on vacations together. Then, it would make Kaitlyn look like a liar. But Kaitlyn's saying, no, we did work things. We did TikTok. You do the things you do with someone else. Like they both have 1 million followers or plus. You do those, that you collab with each other.
The connection.
We'll bring it back a second.
Okay, sorry.
You have
I'm a little slow today.
you meet a guy from Bachelor Nation,
right?
In social circles,
right?
this guy had been with another person in Bachelor Nation.
Right.
Okay.
And then you were like, okay, before we go out,
Yes.
I am going to go to this person
Yes.
who you were with and just let them know.
And by the way, we are live in the Patreon if anyone wants to catch up on Patreon in the chat room. And someone said, I guess what I don't get is if they really weren't friends, why reach out at all? But you have to remember, in the Bachelor world, she would reach out beforehand so that Tayshia would find out before it was in the tabloids. But I understand the question. I understand. And that's what an acquaintance is, right? It's somebody you can go to a dinner party with, but would they be in your, what do they call it back in MySpace? Your top 5 or whatever? Remember when you had to have your, whatever, you know what I mean?
I would like to go on a date with you.
Asking permission of like the ex before going out with.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So how did you do that?
Thinking it would be the situation where they'd go, well, I mean, I don't love it, but of course I'm not going to say
Right.
it was not.
It was not met that way. Did you ask?
All right. And again, you might get very annoyed with me, but you can go watch this yourself. You're watching me on YouTube. You can go watch it yourself. I have to do fair use here. I have to do commentary as we cover this. Kaitlyn says it goes sideways. People in my comment section are saying, did she ever mention Zach's name? I don't believe so. But obviously, you still know the audiences are going to piece this together.
Ask her, did you say, this is the problem, and this is exactly what you're saying. This is the problem with like, hey, I hope you don't mind. And if it's a problem, then I won't go out with that.
I wasn't saying if it's a problem, I won't. I was just giving a heads up.
And by the way, I did the same thing to Kaitlyn Bristowe, a friend of mine, a work friend. I did the same thing. And by the way, would I call Kaitlyn Bristowe a real friend? Well, I asked her who her accountant was. She recommended trail hikes. Sure, we've only hung out in business situations, but I only hang out with anybody in business. Find me, you know what I mean? Anyway, so I'm okay if people say, oh, you're not real friends. Whatever. It doesn't matter to me. I'm secure in my life and whatever. But what's interesting is I reached out to Kaitlyn in a similar way. Not because I was going to date Kaitlyn's ex, but because I told Kaitlyn, hey, your ex invited me onto his podcast. And since I consider us friends, I'd rather you find out from me versus versus the podcast getting uploaded. And you're like, damn, Dave, I've had you on my podcast 3 times. Now you're going to go on my ex's podcast. You might not think this is a big deal, you and the audience, but my personality type, I know that Kaitlyn would appreciate if I asked her. Her response to me was, Dave, that means so much that you would even float that by me. Do what's right for your career. It would be a good opportunity for you. I get that. She goes, I wish I could tell you no, but I understand it's the right thing to do. I would do the same. So you have to understand, folks, you got to dig deeper, right? Your brain operates in multiple different ways. You know the right thing to do, but then you also have your reptilian reaction. I want to tell them to go F off, but I wouldn't do that. And I bring that up because Kaitlyn gives us an example of both sides of her brain. The rational side, reaching out, hey, I want you to know I'm going to be dating, versus the visceral reaction side, right? And when you see comedy and when you see people going for laughs and when you see what you're about to see, I'm telling people, appreciate this like you're at the zoo and you're seeing something you don't always see in life, right? As Bachelor audience, we watch mess play out and then we get mad. How dare they be messy? Hey, idiots. That's why you watch the show, right? The drama. If it bleeds, it leads. Now, you might say, this is collateral damage to Tayshia. We'll get into that in a second.
Okay. So the message was, it was over Instagram or text?
Text.
Okay, so a text you write letting you know this is going to happen.
And are you friends with that person?
Not really.
Okay.
Friendly.
Have you ever hung out
one-on-one? Simple hello.
Yes.
You have hung out one-on-one?
It was a work situation.
Okay. Well, I mean, like, in a personal way.
Once.
Okay.
But we hadn't talked and we weren't friends anymore. And it wasn't somebody that I like.
It had been a long
regularly hang out with.
I personally think there was a falling out in the live after the final Rose episode where Kaitlyn hosted it by herself and Tayshia had COVID in New York City. I believe, I'm sorry. I don't blame anybody. I feel like it was negotiations gone bad, and I believe it was a holdout. And that's what I believe. I'm not saying Tayshia didn't have COVID. The whole story, I've been saying this. Where's my X-Files music? I've been saying this for so long. It is literally nothing against Tayshia. I just know how this works, okay? Nothing against Tayshia. I've done gigs before with former bachelors like bachelorettes like Hannah Brown, and the amount of team that they have, whether it's at UTA or CAA, they've all got good representation. I believe it's a side story that the representation of Tayshia tried to leverage contracts and ended up holding out, and she never ended up going to be in the finale of that show. I'm not saying she lied about having COVID or anything like that. It's fishy. It's fishy is all I'm trying to say. So I think there is a rift that happened after that. And by the way, I've never asked Kaitlyn this. I've just told her my theories, but I've never asked her for the truth. And she probably wouldn't even have known because she was preparing for a live show. Like, she was probably just trying to prepare to be she hosted a live show for 3 hours. We don't give people enough credit for like what they pulled off, both Tayshia and Kaitlyn, by being co-hosts. They were thrown into a co-host role. They weren't even called co-hosts. They wouldn't give them the benefit of the doubt, but that's what they were, right? And then Kaitlyn was the live person. If you were watching ABC, one of the largest networks in the world, really, even though it's like legacy media, it's still like one of the largest networks in the world, owned by the billionaire Disney family, right? She was the only person on screen for 3 hours that conducted that whole thing. People in earpieces, directors in the background. And that was a wild stuff. I think the relationship was fractured after that moment.
It was someone that I said, you know what? She's been moved on for a while now. She seems very happy.
Not that happy.
And I went, so I'm going to just get a pulse check. Just see how it makes her feel.
Right.
And see what happens.
So the text was, if you can remember it,
how
did the text go?
I said, hey, so-and-so DM'd me.
Zach?
Your ex DM'd me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And by the way, I love Jared here because he's just, this is, you want to, comedians, you got to be specific. You got to know everything. Tell me the whole story. He's acting as judge.
Been chatting. Wanted to see. I said, I know you're really happy in a relationship. So I said, I don't actually know if this would bother you or not. I don't know if it like was enough to give a phone call. Like, it clearly just seemed like a text thing to me. And yes, she called and was very upset.
And said, do not go near this guy.
No, she said, I always knew you were a bad person.
Oh, no.
And you've confirmed it. So your true colors are showing.
That's
and then
crazy.
I hung up and I went, no, I just want to send her a picture of me sucking his dick.
So when you explain a joke, you kill it. You kill it when you explain it. But the tension that was created, the tension by this, breakup of work friends, and she said, you're no longer this. They've got Jordana and Jared at the edge of their seat. Comedians don't laugh about a lot of things, right? Because you see comedy all the time. She has them at the edge of her seat. Then when Kaitlyn goes into her voice, and then I just wanted to, that's an aside, which we know as an audience, obviously it's on mic, we hear it, but that's her voice of saying, here's what I would have said to him, right? And then the tension is cut the second Jared bursts out laughing.
Oh.
And you've confirmed it. So your true colors are showing.
That's
and then
crazy.
I hung up and I went, no, I just want to send her a picture of me sucking his dick.
No, from here on out, you can be mad on behalf of Tayshia. You can absolutely be mad. I've got a vow, it's almost like an oath you take, right, when you do comedy, that I don't judge the merit of somebody's joke. She in that moment was trying to be funny. Was there collateral damage? Yes. Yes, there was collateral damage. Like a chef who cuts their finger. There was collateral damage to her being in the kitchen. She went in the kitchen with a comedian. She made him bust out laughing. And the collateral damage is, but Tayshia, everyone knows who she's talking about. If no one knew who she was talking about, this is just a funny scene, right? Just a funny scene if it was some friend from college. But because everyone knows it's Tayshia, people are offended. Now, are they offended on behalf of Tayshia, or probably a lot of that? And there's also probably a lot of people offended because Kaitlyn's really successful and they're like, oh, F her. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to say, well, because you'll have separate versions of what people are upset about. There's people that are upset that she did this to a friend. And then there's people upset that she told the story publicly. There's people that are upset. What's it going to be? Now, I texted Kaitlyn something along the lines of, you don't have to apologize for telling jokes. You don't have to do that. Now, in Bachelor Nation, people will get the human centipede of people that are going to be upset. We watched this play out when I defended Greg Grippo. We watched this play out when I defended Katie Thurston. And I will continue to defend what I think is a fair thing, which is, look, she wasn't trying, her intention wasn't to slam Tayshia. But at the same time, what she did after Tayshia said, basically, you're a bad person, is go, all right, well, I guess the gloves are off. I guess I'll talk about it now. So a lot of people will say in the comment section, which we got here in my Patreon, I appreciate my Patreon comments. I appreciate when people don't just agree with me. I don't need an echo chamber. It is nice. It is nice to have we love you, Dave. But that's not what we're going to get on the internet. So people have said, Tayshia's never commented on this. So why does Kaitlyn feel the need to? Look, their personality types are different. Kaitlyn mentions like the word vomit that she has. She goes, I can't even stop myself sometimes. She mentioned this in her Off the Vine group. Jared is a comedian and we have banter. It was a joke, and of course I wouldn't want to do that. I'm laying in bed bawling my eyes out because I feel so much shame watching it back when I was just trying to make Jared laugh. Now I feel like the whole world hates me. I was truly trying to do the right thing and I added a bad joke in there because it's me and I don't have a damn filter. The bullying comments coming in are so awful now, so I guess I deserve that. Look, here's what I would tell Kaitlyn. You stuck the joke. Now just get off the internet. You stuck the joke. And for people go, that's not funny. Okay, it was the hardest laugh of the episode.
You confirmed it. So your true colors are showing.
That's
and then
crazy.
I hung up and I went, no, I just want to send her a picture of me sucking his dick.
Well, I will say she's definitely not as happy as you thought.
We call that like a blue joke when you go blue. It's when you, and I have a lot of them, it's when you you bedroom talk or dirty talk, scat humor,
She was.
Wow.
I was like, you should have seen my face on the call. I was like, oh
my God. She called you to tell you that?
Yeah. And I was just like, I am so sorry. Like, I actually did not think you were going to respond. So I am actually really sorry. And
did you go out with him?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. She sucked his dick.
Yeah.
She took a picture of her sucking the dick for future reference.
Oh my God.
Now, this is all joking. If she actually did send the photo, then it's a different conversation. In the comment section, by all means, I'm not trying to be critical of Tayshia. She's not a controversial type. We've already seen this from interviews. She's not a Kaitlyn Bristowe or a Rachel Lindsay. And by the way, do I think Kaitlyn Bristowe and Rachel Lindsay are controversial? No. I think they just share their opinion. You got two different types of content creators in the Bachelor world. Opinionated channels and then channels that are less opinionated. There's nothing wrong with that. Bachelor Fan Take will have opinions, but he keeps it Bachelor related. He's not going off about politics and healthcare and this and that, right? Versus Rachel Lindsay. So he's not going to trigger as many people. Same thing with any Instagram accounts that cover data in the Bachelor world. They're not going to give you their opinion with their face attached to it because their brand is like, here are the numbers. Here's what the numbers say. Which, by the way, is fair, but it does protect people from sort of, like I said before, the human centipede of offense. People are going to get mad at me. I'm not going to read the comments. I'm going to take advice I would give Kaitlyn, which is be impeccable with your word, one of the 4 agreements, share what your thoughts are, and then own it, and then go away, or, don't address it. To be quite honest, I actually, for a lot of reasons, think Nick Viall does it right, because people get offended at everything he says. Now, do I still think he has terrible takes? Will I still making videos when I completely disagree? Absolutely. But I also respect the fact that he's like, I don't need to respond because you're not going to cancel me and none of this matters. So will Kaitlyn lose some followers from this? Sure. Were those people that were going to show up to Target and wait in line at Costco to buy her Spade and Sparrow? No. This will do nothing negative to her fan base or anything like that.
Yeah, there you go.
Amazing. Please
now, I just want to see if there's anything else I'm missing here, because a lot of people watch the reel, which is a truncated version of what we're watching now. And I think it's important to watch the full thing. And look, there'll be accounts, like I said, there'll be people, oh, you should have said that. Look, who the hell, and I truly mean this, who the hell are we to tell other people what they should or shouldn't say when Kaitlyn's entire career, everything that makes her successful and not having to be a waitress at a restaurant in Toronto, everything that's made her successful has been her following her intuition about what she thinks is funny, wearing her heart on her sleeve, sharing with her audience. If people don't like it, I understand. But what bought her Nashville mansion, I haven't been there, but I'm sure it's very nice. What kind of bought the G-Wagon and what finances a very successful business of hers is telling you how it is. The Collateral Damage, which is, of course, never, getting back together with whatever her thing is with Tayshia, will exist. And, I've had this before where I've said a joke and I'm getting laughs in a podcast and I'm like making fun of my wife or whatever. And then I'm like, hey, whoops, I didn't. Yeah, I make fun of my mom all the time. I love my mom. I make fun of my sister. I make fun, it's like having the comedic mind that I believe Kaitlyn has, whether she does stand up or not. It's like walking through a field of poison ivy and then not itching yourself. Like you're going to have to scratch that itch. And that's kind of like Nick Viall has a lot of the intuitions of a comedian without the likability or comedic timing. Kaitlyn Bristowe knocked it out of the park comedically here. You can just be upset about the tone of, people involved.
Text that to me.
Well, it's so interesting because this is like, I
would be so embarrassed to like. Here's the thing. Even if it did bother me, and I was even kind of like thinking that about you because I was being petty and I'm like, just consumed with rage that this person is moving on in any way. It would be so embarrassing for me to actually like say that out loud to one of you.
I agree with Jordana here. This is what I would do. If someone texted me that, I would send them like a peace emoji. I would be super passive aggressive and I'd go, do what you got to do. And then I would unfollow them. You know what I mean? I said this, I think you get like 5 friends, girl code, guy code, especially the older you get. You might be like in your sorority and you might have, a code system. Don't date so-and-so's ex or whatever. The older you get, the smaller your friend group really is and the less people you got to worry about. Now, Kaitlyn may end up marrying Zach Clark. They're engaged, by the way. I have no idea. Now, I don't know if they're together. I don't know. They might just be casually together, together from a distance. Who the hell knows? But I don't think Kaitlyn owes Tayshia to not pursue Zach. And you might go, there's a million people out there. There's a million fish in the sea. Sure, there may be a million fish in the sea, but in the Bay of the Bachelor, you like this nautical reference here? In the Bay of the Bachelor, there's alumni and they're more compatible with each other to an extent. Not the ones that are actually on the same season, but like cousins of each other, like, so like Bachelor in Paradise and, people that they're compatible because they all know what they've been through together. They've all kind of like served in this weird Bachelor, union.
Because I think that it would be like, oh, this person is really still not over this at all.
Well, especially because she had a day to think about it. So I sent the text and the next day she called. And I am the type of person, I react with big emotions. I probably would have done the same thing that she did in the moment. But then I would have hung up and I would have said, ooh, that was not a reasonable reaction.
Yeah.
And I would have thought it through and I would have probably talked to my therapist about it. I saw that hat. Hold on, let me ask my therapist. And I would probably do that. And then I would probably call back and say like, you know what? I apologize for the way I spoke to you. It doesn't feel good that you're doing this. But like at the end of the day, I am happy and I thank you for giving me a heads up. I would have.
And that never happened.
No, I've always known you were a bad person.
Yeah.
And
which
this
is again,
confirms it.
Which again,
you can say what you want here. You could say Kaitlyn shouldn't have told this story. You can say she shouldn't have said the suck your dick part, whatever. I think Tayshia's response was, sure, go for it. That's the response you want. Sure, whatever. I'm indifferent to how she responds, but I just wouldn't have done that. And people in my comment section are saying, "Oh, Dave, you're so thoughtful." No, I'd probably be passive aggressive, or I just wouldn't respond. I'd let, it's kind of like how I didn't respond necessarily to a recent sort of like, I don't know, public spat. I was like, yeah, I'll just let the non-response be my response. You know what I mean? Anyhow, let's see if there's anything left here.
It made me be like, I knew we weren't friends. Like I actually knew she didn't really actually like me in the first place. So I just, it was, but that just goes, this is all to say for this person, all I ever expect from people is a heads up. And if these are your good friends, I just think saying like, hey, it would probably make you uncomfortable if I go to dinner. Like, I just feel like talking it through with anybody is going to solve some problem.
Well, there's two things that come to mind.
And at least you know you've covered your bases.
Right. And I think to the emailer, yes, like I think she needs to like tell the company policy.
All right, so they go back. Look, you can agree. You can agree to disagree or agree with me. Again, it's not me bashing Tayshia. I haven't bashed Jason Tartick or Sean Booth for that matter. And Kaitlyn Bristowe and I are perfectly fine. Like, there's no like, oh, bash my exes in order to have some sort of entitlement to me is whatever. But the comments are hilarious. Someone even commented here on the She's All Batch page. Kaitlyn could snatch Dave's wife and he'd still defend Kaitlyn and blame his wife. You know, I mean, it's like, what do you want to do to that? I just think, I think when you watch the full clip, and let me know in the comment section. I think when you watch the full clip, it's not as bad as the short version. You hear Kaitlyn's point. We weren't even friends, whatever. But anyhow, you might get mad at something. I always practice the 4 agreements. Be impeccable with your word and don't take offense to things. It doesn't matter. Your life doesn't matter. No amount of offense you feel here is going to make your paycheck go up at all. Unless you're running an offended Facebook page or whatever. A couple comments from people here. Someone said, I love your take on the KB situation. I get her joke didn't land. No, her joke did land in the room. It crushed. Why isn't anyone discussing Tayshia's attack on KB? KB's intent was a good one on sending a heads up text. To get a call saying, I always knew you were not a great person shouldn't be discussed. Thanks for staying. And I know people said, well, Kaitlyn wasn't happy with the response she got. Yeah, of course. But, I think most reasonable people are going, oh yeah, that response was a little much, right? And you go, well, Tayshia and Zach were engaged. Okay, it's a bachelor engagement. I don't count those. I'm sorry. And I said, you didn't ditch. I said, you don't ditch friends, even if some ditched me. LOL. That's in reference to Kaitlyn being my friend. And I wouldn't ditch her because, I think she means well. And by the way, when I interviewed her on Driving with Dave, it was the morning after she had a really bad kind of spiral with a lot of fighting happening online. And I think this is like twice as worse for her. So if Kaitlyn's listening, I would say just hang in there, go for a walk and turn your social media off. If you have to learn how to manage social media during a crisis situation, give it to a friend and don't deal with all the hate because it will die down. Because these people that are hating on you right now, they're almost feeding off of the and it's like they're not your fans. And they're only going to propel you. Sorry, I said, sorry that happened. She said, I really try to focus on a person's intent in a situation. None of us are perfect or do things properly, but when the dust settles, what were they trying to do? I really like your open mind perspective on situations. Do you think the Tayshia side of this conversation should be discussed? I don't think Tayshia handled things properly. I agree. I don't think she handled things properly either, but again, she's allowed to say what she wants and she's allowed to feel what she feels. But I don't think Tayshia, I just think it's like your best bet is to give the peace sign and get out. Someone said, I love your take on the KB situation. I get her joke didn't land. Why isn't anyone... Oh, sorry. I already shared that. Sorry. Anyhow. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for me. Those are my thoughts. Agree or disagree. Please try to keep it kind in the comment section. And for the love of God, don't DM any of these people. Let them be. Appreciate that you have content on a Monday. And that you had content all weekend regarding this situation. Like, appreciate that. We don't, in the end, that's what we watch the show for, right? Is drama. And Kaitlyn provided it this weekend for sure. All right. Well, I think one more video coming your way. And I've also got the Patreon, if you want to join us there, patreon.com/Dave Neal. And I'll have more thoughts on this. I will continue to discuss this privately on Patreon and then on this afternoon rush hour podcast. So you can go check that out. We'll see you then. Bye, everybody.